Hello, and welcome to Know Before You Go for the third Sunday of Lent. I'm Father Scott Steinkerchner, coming to you from Wadsworth, Ohio, visiting me sainted mum. And we have the classic gospel of Jesus' encounter with the woman at the well. And this happens in Samaria at Jacob's well. So the Samaritans are at one point one people with the Jewish people. What happens is in the northern kingdom, Assyria starts to make encroaches into the northern kingdom, and they start exporting people into the area. And so the faith gets a little diluted. And from a southern perspective, you're letting in these foreign gods. Then the northern kingdom falls, and it's just the southern kingdom. And they say, see what happens when you let in these foreign gods? And then, of course, the southern kingdom falls. They get carted off to Babylon. But when they come back, they really center the religion on the worship of one God centered in Jerusalem at the temple. But these people were still around from the northern kingdom who never got sent off to Babylon. And so when they come back and they say, well, this is the faith, it's drifted a bit. So these leftovers in the northern kingdom who don't buy into this new southern view that worship should be centered in Jerusalem at the temple, but they share, Moses and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all that stuff. They now see each other as rivals, as enemies, actually. So Jesus is in this foreign territory, the hated other, the Samaritans. And he stops at Jacob's well. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, remember. So this woman of Samaria came to draw water, and Jesus is there alone. So it's just the two of them there. His disciples had gone away. And he asks the Samaritan woman for a drink. And she says to him, how can you, as a Jew, ask me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink? Because it tells us they wouldn't choose their vessels. They find them unclean. And a single man doesn't talk to a single woman at the well. Why is that? Well, wells are a place where you meet your wife. It's funny, this is Jacob's well. And Jacob's father Isaac encountered his wife, Rebekah, who came alone to a well. Now, his servant and he were looking for a wife, and Rebekah comes alone to the well, and they get together. Jacob and Rachel, the same thing. Jacob finds his wife Rachel at the well. He even kisses her there. Oh, but it's years before they get married because he's got to earn her. So there's that sort of tension at the well, and Jesus is breaking down those barriers. He's not like a normal Jew there. The propriety of it all. So the woman comes back to Jesus with that, and then he says, if you knew the gift of God and who is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. He's speaking symbolically about some other kind of water. But she's very practical. She says, sir, you don't even have a bucket and the well is deep. Are you saying that you are greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? She ties together the practical aspects of that and what? You can do some miracle here. You're greater than Jacob. And Jesus, following up to that, says, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water that I will give will never thirst. The water I shall give will become in that one a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And the woman, still being practical, says, Sir, give me this water so that I may not be thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. So this is an interesting part of the story, and really a crux. In the short reading of the gospel, the next line is omitted, so the story doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's a part we all know, so maybe they figure we'll just fill in the blanks. In the longer version, the whole thing, Jesus says, go call your husband and come back. And she says, I have no husband. And he says, you're right, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you're living with is not your husband. And so the woman says, Sir, I can see you are a prophet. This is a crucial thing. A lot of people make big things about her 5 husbands and that she must be a sexually loose woman, or there's something untoward about that, and she's there in the middle of the day so she doesn't get condemned. She's an outcast among her peers. But there's no reason to really think that. She doesn't think Jesus has given her offense by saying she's had 5 husbands. Her response just shows, wow, you know me. You know the details of my life. You must be a prophet, knowing things that you can't possibly know. And remember, elsewhere in the gospel, in the other gospels, the Sadducees try to trip up Jesus with it. Well, a woman married, had no children, and her husband died, so her brother has to marry her to raise up children after him. And 7 brothers all married this one woman, and then she dies. Whose wife will she be in this heaven? There was nothing that gravely unusual about a woman being married multiple times. So the idea that there's something wrong here about that, I don't think the text really goes that way. That's maybe men who were sexually frustrated put that on the text, and we all hear that. Anyway, she says, I can see you're a prophet, so she asks him a question that's very theological. She points right to the heart of the difference between Samaritans and Jews. Our ancestors, ancestral worship that you shared, we all worship here. This is the mountain that Abraham did his sacrifice on. So this is where we worship God. And you people say worship should happen in Jerusalem at the temple. Which is it? And Jesus has the lovely response. The hour is coming and is now here where true worship will worship the Father in spirit and truth. Neither there nor here, but in spirit and truth. And the woman now is fully on board with the theological turn of the conversation. And she says, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called the Christ. When he comes, he will tell us everything. And Jesus says, I am he, the one speaking with you. This is the first time in John's Gospel that Jesus has said that to anyone. And he tells it to this foreigner, a woman. That's who he chooses to first reveal himself to. Quite interesting, that. At that moment, his disciples come back and say, why is he talking to this woman? And the woman leaves her water jar and runs into town to tell everybody what she has found. Could this be the Christ, the Messiah we've been waiting for? He told me everything. She leaves her water jar. She's no longer concerned about worldly water. She is looking for that living water, that water of life. And it is so already welled up within her that it is spilling out to the people in the town who come back because of what she says and believe in Jesus, these Samaritans. And then they invite him to stay in the town, and in the next few days, even more come to believe because they hear from Jesus himself. So that living water spills out from her and becomes living water in them as well, spilling over to other people. So she is the first, in John's Gospel, the first preacher of Christ. This Samaritan woman. And this water wells up within her and waters her whole town. That's amazing. What's the challenge to us? There's so many. We put these narrow boundaries on the good people who should preach, people who shouldn't, people who should be trusted, people who shouldn't. Those people who believe differently from us, and we need to keep them at arm's length. And Jesus breaks down all of those barriers. He can call anybody to join his movement, and they can have a fruitful ministry if they simply open their mind to the possibility of it. It's a beautiful, powerful reading. We don't hear anything else about this Samaritan woman for the rest of the gospel, but what we hear makes us want to be her. So there's many things there, but knowing that background about Samaritans and Jacob's well and propriety and all, whatever you hear, that'll help you unpack it a little better in the moment. God bless you this coming week. I hope your Lent is going well.